Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thrive webinar series. This one is on dynamic intersection of AI and learning design in L&D. We are here to explore if this AI in learning design lives to its hypes. We are here to also share the insights and ignite a conversation that moves us toward a more effective, inclusive, and future-ready approaches to learning design. And today we are going to hear from our learning design experts and their hands-on experience. I'm Niloufar Zarin, and I'm head of AI in Thrive. And with me here today, we have Ben, Dan, and Al from our content team. But before we start our discussion, shall we take a moment to ask them to introduce themselves? So, Al, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Al, Chief Content Officer here at Thrive, and so day-to-day I look after the content team and the content strategy. So I'll hand over to Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm one of the senior designers at Thrive, and I was kind of responsible for helping to develop the AI project we're going to talk about shortly.
And I'm Corey, senior learning designer, been here about 3 years, so know pretty much all the content.
Thank you, and thanks for joining me today in today's session. So you recently experimented with the AI-driven content design approach, creating like 4 e-learning modules using AI, and that modules were actually tackling human social subjects like empathy and conflict of resolution. By the way, for the audience, if they haven't seen it and haven't read it yet, the link for downloading it is in the comments. So as my first question, where we start, can you share your experience for that we had with this design development, and tell me why did you actually experiment with AI for designing these contents using AI?
So we really wanted to see whether sort of AI could handle a really human topic. So we'd had sort of little experience in team. I'd sort of used ChatGPT, things like that, to cut down my waffle in some instances. And so we really wanted to see how it could handle an emotive topic, and also whether it could speed up the production process, but also produce good quality content at the same time. So we sort of started by having a brief. We also had our AI guru, Simon, from the marketing team join us and just sort of share his experiences and sort of what tools he'd played with, which gave us a little bit of a head start, I would say. And then we just went about our normal process, which sort of started with scoping and scripting, which I'll hand over to Corey to tell you a little bit more about.
Yeah, so I guess in our day-to-day, we'd kind of do the research ourselves and kind of use that research to script. Everything is like from our heads, right? So we kind of wanted to see if we can make that more efficient using AI tools. So use ChatGPT to kind of structure the content. So we had the title, is it dealing with empathy? Listening with empathy? Yeah. Can't remember now. Empathy, anyway. So a very human topic. So ChatGPT was used to kind of structure that in terms of, you know, the key topic areas. And then taking that structure from ChatGPT, we put it into Google Gemini, and then that kind of turned that into a script for us. Yeah, so that was kind of the scripting process. And then obviously we went on to design.
Yeah, so it was kind of similar for concepting, where we were kind of utilizing ChatGPT to help us like brainstorm ideas. So usually, you know, obviously you'd have like maybe a team of people around you, and we still do a lot of that. So there's kind of like that stage of like sharing ideas, coming up with new ideas, and it was almost using ChatGPT to help to generate those initial ideas from a design point of view. And it actually proved to be really useful. So once ChatGPT had helped to kind of generate some of those conceptual ideas from a design standpoint, we then started to use Adobe Firefly, which is another AI tool which will generate AI imagery. And then it was very much like feeding the information from ChatGPT into Firefly, and then working with that to come up with specific imagery around that content that Corrie's written. So that was a starting point in terms of like concepts.
And you said, didn't you, Dan, it was like having someone to bounce ideas off.
Exactly.
To come up with those concepts in the initial phase. So if you're working on something on your own, or personally for me, sometimes if you're a bit stuck or you get a bit of a writer's block, I feel like AI tools are really, really good to just sort of help you get on your way or get you started into something.
Similar with the scripting, kind of it can be hard sometimes to have like the practical scenarios and kind of think of questions that would make the learner think. So to have AI input in that was really helpful as well.
And then, Dan, in terms of imagery, obviously we use our own authoring tool that's built by Thrive Lucid to wrap the content in. But you made some videos, didn't you? And I'm laughing because it did some quite random things, which was also quite fun. And that's all part of the experiment, was learning what it could do. So do you want to just share a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so I suppose there was obviously you had the image creation part of it, and then also there's the video creation side of things as well. So there are a few elements to creating a video. One of them is like VO, which is like voiceover. So we kind of looked at tools that might be able to help with that. And also stock footage as well. So we looked at tools that could help to generate stock footage, like video footage. And then we also explored tools that could do a kind of rough edit for us as well. So they're the kind of like parts of like my own job kind of day to day that you would do very like manually. So it was very much like exploring AI tools that could help facilitate some of those tasks that you might do, or at least help to kind of like facilitate those tasks. So we were using like 11 labs for the VO, which turned out like pretty well. And we ran some kind of like internal surveys as well, where we'd have like a real person saying a kind of paragraph, and then a couple of AI examples as well. And the results that came back from that were like really good. People found it very difficult to like spot who was real, who was actually AI. So that was the VO piece that we ran. The stock video side of things, we're using Runway. Now, Runway is still in development, and it created some really like beautiful footage. So like from a lighting set point of view, it did a really nice job of doing lighting sets. The part of it that it's still kind of like a work in progress. Actual people, some of the people look very convincing. Other people maybe who are like further in the background, the faces are still kind of quite strange, is the only way I can describe it. So we had some like mixed results with Runway. And then we were using InVideo as well, which helps to do like a rough edit. So you can put a script into InVideo, and it will come up with edits with stock video. But then you can then go in and swap out those stock pieces of video, so it will kind of like do the edits for you and the cutting of where you might put cuts in manually. It will go in and like cut that video footage. So it was really like quite insightful from that point of view, from a video point of view, and just how those tools can be there to like help sort of facilitate you making a video. It's not going to do it all for you, but it's going to like it's certainly almost there to be a very useful tool to help you to like make something. I think InVideo is really exciting in terms of like if you're a company and you want to get very nice like high quality stock video footage, going out and filming on site and organizing shot lists, actors, actresses, all those kinds of things, getting access to the right environment to be able to get video footage. I can see like real potential there to be able to get like very like high production valued stock that's really specific to what you need. So that's really exciting for me to see where that goes in the future.
Yeah, I think certainly when we look at very heavily compliance-based topics, we're always looking at how we can really bring that to life. And I think Dan and Corey especially like really sort of approaching things with a really nitty kind of design, so it's quite gritty and hard hitting. And I think, and there's probably one of the questions for later, is where do I think it will go in the future? I think it being able to source that sort of content that you wouldn't normally be able to have access to is going to be a game changer.
Yeah. No, and you touched on a very good point. Yes, that's one of the questions for later, but we're going to tap into it later on. But one of the things that you touched on, it's how the AI has helped you through this process from the development and, as you said, bouncing the idea with, to start with, to the parts that it helps you in making the very repetitive jobs faster than, as you mentioned, right? So these are very advantage of the using the AI system. So I want to take it like a little bit further and say, what was the challenges that you had using this AI tools in the development? What do you think are the problems or the something that people to be aware of when they were using the AI tool? And did you come across anything, or do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so from a scripting perspective, it would be that human element, right? Because you can't really replicate that. So it's very not formal necessarily, but you can almost tell it's AI unless you kind of prompt it to talk in a particular way. And that can be hard to kind of get right, because then it can go like the other way and be a bit too casual. And then at the same time, you get kind of information that's repetitive. So with my script, it was like, you had the intro and then it would repeat it again, pretty much reworded in the next section. And that kind of continued through. So it is really a jigsaw. You're basically using it to piece together a script from, well, for me, ChatGPT and Google Gemini, now Google Bard. So yeah, it is a bit of a kind of jigsaw, but at the same time did save time. So, there's pros and cons for sure.
And Corey, it saved, didn't it, half of the time to script than it normally would for content of that size?
Yeah, I mean, a big chunk of our job is research. Without the research, you can't even begin to kind of write anything. So, to have that time saved, you can really focus on the more creative side of it. So, yeah, it halved the time.
And then I guess as well that it's the cross-referencing as well, isn't it, to make sure that actually the content is accurate. I think with empathy, we all had quite a good understanding of what that is. It's quite a popular topic, and we've got various modules that sort of touch on that. So I think a key thing is, depending on what you're using it for, is just be really mindful that the content is accurate and you're checking the sources, which Google Bard will tell you, won't it? It will cite them so you can go and get the links.
Yeah, I think if you were scripting compliance stuff, like the regulatory kind of minefields, as it were, then you might struggle. ChatGPT especially hasn't got kind of up-to-date information, or doesn't use it. Google Gemini is slightly better, I think. It's more up-to-date, but then I'd still be wary with those kind of like power skills. It's probably a lot better. But then that's a test for the future as well. Can it do compliance? I don't know.
Yeah. So, Dan, yourself, what was your challenges in using the?
Yeah, really similar in a way, but obviously from a different angle. I think it's getting that kind of human feel to a lot of the resources. So again, if it's VO, it's making sure that, if you're using 11 labs, there are a lot of variables in there that you can change to come out. Basically, when you're using 11 labs, you put in the script and it will auto generate a VO. You can preview that VO, but then there are like parameters you can slightly tweak to change like the abbreviation on something. So it's really like kind of keeping an eye on how that is sounding, like when you export, and then tweaking and maybe even doing some editing there to like get a final piece. And the same kind of thing with photography. Again, if you're using like Adobe Firefly, for example, some of the imagery is like spot on, but there are sometimes, if you look quite closely, there are like anomalies within the photography. So you might want to like generate that again to like get a better result. So I think it's keeping an eye on those kinds of things when you're creating, whether it's like audio, video or photography. It's just making sure that it feels real, and it doesn't have that kind of like AI, I call it like an AI polish on it. You want it to feel kind of like very realistic and human. So it's just keeping an eye on those things when you're using the tools.
And we were playing with it. It was confined spaces, wasn't it? and I can't remember what the tool was, but it just gave up in the end. But it started putting just random pictures of toilet rolls in
It comes up with some very random results at times, like based on.
It was related to PPE, wasn't it? PPE somehow translated to toilet roll. I don't know.
Yeah, being in a confined space, which I guess maybe there is some logic, but yeah, it was. But it was those little things that are just quite interesting to see where it starts off really, really well, then it would go slightly off.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely interesting.
And really good fun.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, amusing. Yeah.
So this is very interesting. Yes, when we're talking about human-centric AI and making sure that we are using the tools in a human-centric and or AI, human sandwich, there are two aspects to it. One of them making sure that there's a human element and the feel and the touch of a human, like as you said, it feels like not AI but human, but also the ethical considerations like the bias. Like how does it bring elements of the bias in terms of gender or lots of other, and the algorithms can make too. So did you experience any of these biases? Because you touched on the elements of being a human element into it, but did you experience any bias and in the design and the experiments that you have? And let's start, that was my first question. Let's see if you had experienced any.
I mean, from a script perspective, not really, because I kind of avoided using names or, any descriptions of people. So yeah, from a script perspective, not so much, but from a design perspective, I think AI is not so good.
Yeah, maybe I think the photography worked quite well, and it's probably very similar to how you would kind of make decisions on like a photo shoot, or whether you're selecting stock, like pre-existing stock. So I think that like the photography thing was actually okay. The video footage is a bit more, it makes you can make less choices at the moment in terms of like generating stock video. So I think probably what it is once you have like less choice in what is going to be chosen as the final resource or the final asset, I think that's when it becomes a bit more problematic, because then the AI is essentially like dictating who that person's going to be, like what their background is. I think that's when it becomes a bit more tricky, but I think that will change over time. I think that's just at the moment.
Yeah.
That's something I definitely noticed.
And I think from a production process point of view, we didn't sort of drop any of the peer review points, which we do to make sure that at script phase that we're covering all bases, that it is inclusive, that there's no sort of errors, and that it flows nicely. And I think with the builds, we peer reviewed those as well, didn't we? To make sure there was nothing in there that we thought, oh, hang on, we've got to change that. I know you changed some stuff as you went, but it was pretty good.
So can I say it was a collaboration between you and AI as much as possible?
Yeah, definitely. It's assisting, not replacing, isn't it? It's we still need to. You still, like you said, the human sandwich. Like you still need that human there, because if you let it run wild, then it's not going to be perfect. But
yeah, no, that definitely, it seems that especially in this domain, we need to have the touch of a human, and then it's an AI that is helping you to again bounce the ideas with, or do the jobs better a bit, or maybe like faster sometimes. Yeah. So just for the audience as well, and for myself too, basically, how do you define a good quality AI generated content, both from a script and the design perspective?
good content for me would be something that's practical. So information that you can apply to everyday, well, depending on the topic, but your everyday life, engaging, and yeah, that human element is important, because if you don't have that, then you're just reading words basically, aren't you? So yeah, I guess that was what makes good e-learning. So that was kind of where the sticking point was with the AI stuff, with the human-centric kind of element.
Yeah. I think for me, accuracy, that it's easy to understand. at Thrive especially, we try and write in the most human way, but in a way that content has an impact. So sometimes it's more than just words. You want to be able to feel it and have that real emotive side. And also you want people to go away and apply things. So go and think about doing something differently, how you approach it, maybe go and try something. So I think there's those elements where the human sandwich helps. But in terms of sort of getting the core foundational bit of content was pretty good. But those are the bits like the extra touches where the humans make it special, I would say.
Definitely. I'd kind of say the same with design as well. And I think probably sort of in the not too distant future, we'll have like access to much higher quality like video footage to like enhance a lot of the kind of like video material. Like I don't see it as like that far off where you could have like kind of Netflix quality stock video footage that's kind of all like AI generated that then you can bring into like learning content to really kind of lift all of the content that we're creating. And I think that's where it's going to become really interesting over the next sort of couple of years, is having access to that quality of stock like at your kind of fingertips.
And I guess that enhances the learner's experience as well, right? Which is great enabling them. That's perfect. And now, following on that one, dovetailing on that one, Dan, how do you see that these AI technologies are reshaping the traditional content design roles? How do you think it's going to help you in the future in terms of doing like the responsibilities and the roles within your domain?
That's a really good question. Again, I think it will help to like enhance the quality of like learning material. I think that there's a lot of learning material out there that's very I want to use the correct words, but it's the production values are quite like low. And I think that AI will help to like lift that up and bring it up to where it needs to be.
There's only so much you can do with stock footage, right? Like you can add overlays and effects and stuff, but it still looks stocky. So
exactly, and you're maybe not going to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a film shoot to create a piece of content, whereas actually if you've got AI to help assist to bring in very, very good quality photography and very, very good quality video, all of a sudden that's going to like really enhance, I think, learning material.
That's and then touching on like, would you think that if it helps you doing some of those faster, would it free some time for you to spend on doing creative and other bits of your job that maybe you don't have some time for right now more? And how do you think it will change the future of your role?
Yeah, I think that the way I see it at the moment, and that might change, is that it's more like a kind of like a helping hand. So it's not necessarily doing like parts of your job for you, if that makes sense. It's almost like enhancing those parts of your job and maybe helping you to like approach things in a different way that you may not have thought of before. So I see that like that's probably like my own standpoint on it at the moment. So it's more like enhancing what you're creating and producing rather than like doing it for you. I don't think it's not at that point where it's that automated. Obviously it is automated in the point where you don't have to go out and like take a video camera and a sound person to go and like capture footage, and you can do that just by using prompts. That's not my job role though. So there are like efficiencies there, but I think mainly it's from my own point of view, it's like enhancing what I do rather than doing it for you like directly.
I think from what I saw and what I took away quite early on was, I think there was quite a feeling in the team last year, Corey, I think especially in roles similar to yours where AI was a bit scary, because if AI can produce this content and can write well and script, where does that leave the people that do scripting and do research? But actually, sort of not even 2 days in, was it? You two were so excited and realizing that actually it can take away some of these laborious tasks. And I think as humans, when you write and you write well, you're in the flow, you're in the zone, you're not interrupted, your energy's at the right level. And actually with day-to-day distractions, it's near on impossible to have a whole day like that. So for it to give you a starting point, and then that allows you to have that sort of headspace to think about actually what could we do in terms of practical activities, and really sort of think about that, and then the concepts, and have more time for brainstorming, I think is really quite powerful for us in terms of time.
Yeah, that's that actually, I think that's one of the advantages of the using AI tools, not only within the learning design, but also with other roles and what other fields as well, that helps you to like a bit of a like give you a headspace. I think you said it very nice. That gives you the headspace to maybe think beyond what it has provided for you. So my next question would be, if you want to suggest to audience a few tools that they can get their hands dirty on and start creating an AI assisted AI content author tool, what would you suggest to them, Corey and Dan?
Yeah, it'd be ChatGPT and Google Gemini for me. Both kind of do different things, and it's hard to describe unless you actually like get down into it. I guess ChatGPT is probably more formal in the way it kind of produces information, and then Google Gemini is slightly more human, but not quite there. So that's the two kind of best text generators, say. There's loads more for design.
Yeah, I think like for me, 11 Labs is really like pretty good, and I would definitely recommend looking at that for creating VO. So 11 Labs, that was very good for VOs. Runway is very interesting for stock video footage. So you can generate stock video footage by using prompts into Runway. And in the not too distant future, OpenAI are about to release Sora. So that's one to keep an eye on, because I think that's really going to elevate stock video. And that's coming sort of in the next 6 months, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe the next 6 months. And then in terms of imagery and photography, I'd definitely look at Adobe Firefly for creating photography. And it's already amazing. I can't remember if it's in beta still or whether it's actually been rolled out, but you can get access to it if you're using sort of Adobe Suite. But yeah, an amazing tool, and it's only going to get better over the next kind of 5-10 years. It's just going to get better and better. So yeah, Adobe, I would definitely go and check that out. Adobe Firefly.
5-10 years, I reckon, even in a year.
Yeah, I mean it'll be getting better month by month. Yeah. I'm sure.
Where it will be by the end of this year, I think it will be miles ahead of where we are today.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And of course, making sure that everyone is keeping that human element in the loop as they're practicing with this is quite important, and making sure that they're checking it. And how do you suggest people tag that this was generated or helped to generate by AI? Do you think that tagging that is important for the learners to know?
Oh, that's a big question.
I think so. I think when AI first came out, and I do use it to cut out my waffle because I say a lot, I kind of would, I think to start off with, it felt a bit like cheating. So, but it's not, it's helping you, right? And like everything we do, it doesn't say right as much as me, for sure. So that's an improvement. But everything we do, we then send to check and we add our touch to it. But I think we should reference it like we would reference any other link or website or book that we have researched with. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
The flip side of the coin is that if a piece of photography is so realistic, do you need to say that it's created from AI? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the opposite side because we're still part of that. We're still inputting what we want into it, and playing with the results to get exactly what we want. So it's not like everything is complete. It was in this project just to see, but moving down the line, like it's not going to be the case. So I don't know. I think when it starts to, when you're posting videos on social media and that, then it gets messy and blurred, because that's crazy. But yeah, I think in terms of us, because we are there, like we are inputting into it.
I like the way he says that, because we are there. Yes, you are there. Because to be honest, there is an EU Act of Law with the AI Act, which says that if content is fully generated and synthesized by AI, it should let its audience know. But as you said, Corey, you are there when you're creating it, right? So it's the question of, is it like, do you want to declare, is it there or not? So, but I like the way you said, because we were there. So it's actually helping you to generate something. It didn't generate it. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So again, now thinking about this, we are there, or is it fully there? Is it fully AI, or you are always there or not? And Al already touched on this at the beginning. Where do you guys see that, when you envision that the future of content authoring and learning design would be with AI? A short term, maybe, and maybe not 10 years down, but a bit earlier than that as well.
It's a good question. Yeah, I really don't know. I think that, I'm not sure.
I think if we look at what we do as a team, it can help us now, and we can save time now. I think with audio, we use a lot of team voices. We can save time using 11 Labs when we really tweak it.
Yeah.
And I think it will support with translations too, localizations in terms of voiceover.
My voice was turned into French, wasn't it?
That made life very easy.
Yeah.
Having that. I think I think that the quality is going to get better and better. I think that's the big thing. It's sort of still, it's not in its infancy, but it's still being developed, and it's still getting better month on month. So I think we're just going to see like more improvements in like the quality and the kind of believability of it.
And again, I think later down the line, with some of that stock footage where it's really sort of almost niche content that you would have to, even to try and get a real life video shoot, you would have to go through so much red tape, I guess.
Exactly.
I think for it to generate things like that, and I think the little almost glitches we've experienced now in the videos, I think they will be minimal.
They'll be kind of ironed out.
Yeah.
I suppose that is one of the big challenges that we do get at the moment, is getting relevant photography or relevant stock video footage in like very specific scenarios. So I can see that being like incredibly helpful in the not too distant future in terms of like accessing that stock, especially around
with our sector suites. There's a range of kind of premises where these things can happen. So
exactly. It could be a kind of health and safety piece that's based in a really for a really specific industry, and having access into like, say, I don't know, maybe like a stadium where there's like a crowd is like really, really difficult to get sign off on that kind of content. So if you can negate that by using AI, that's an amazing like kind of opportunity to be able to access that.
We agree, Whitney. Certainly Corey does. My voice doesn't get used because it's so young. I think Corey and Bronte's voices, definitely.
Yeah, my voice is used everywhere, so sorry if you recognise it.
The one thing I would say about AI voiceover, and I know that on one of the last webinars, voiceover artist Rory really touched on this, is you can't get that sort of the distance or that full emotion. So again, I just think from a content production point of view, for straightforward voiceover, it's brilliant. It's there, you can use it. You might have to tweak it, teach it, so how to pronounce things or have a certain accent, I guess, and sort of how we pronounce words, which makes us all sound different. But I think for the real emotive pieces or serious drama, you would absolutely still need that professional voiceover.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. At the moment.
Yes. But will it be able to go like forward and back and you know, like where you're talking to a microphone, take it away.
That's
Could you
true.
make it echoey?
Yeah.
It's the tone, right? It's the rhythm. It's
Yeah.
the rhythm, it's the tone, and it's adding that dimension, extra dimension to it, and not being mono. Coming from an AI background, I would say if you give it enough data and enough time and train it, you will somehow get there. But again, you need to have a human and the element on it, and it would be, while and retraining. But yeah, that's quite important. Rhythm, tone of the voice, that actually, as you said, we touched on it on the previous webinar, is something that it's, again, a human-centric part of what we can add to that AI design, even in the future options. And so now thinking about that, do you see any risk to be aware of for us as a developers of this tool and capability, and for the end user of it in the learning and editors in the learning and the design side, to just be aware of it?
I think something that came up as part of the experiment was, and the whole reason we wanted to do it was to see how well we could do it using AI with us. You know, we were still part of that journey. We weren't away. So even as part of that journey and it being an AI project, someone raised a really good point, especially in the subject of empathy, where we didn't have a real homeless person in the footage. And so for us, it was, nothing was real about what we did to some degree because it was created by AI. But it was a really valid point. And for me, again, that's it took away the emotive part of it.
Yeah.
And the realness and almost the rawness of the topic area. I think to be aware of is just, I would never do it without checking anything.
No.
And you touched on it before, Al, just accuracy, isn't it? Like, is what it's saying, you know, what you want it to say? Is it right? Is it correct? Is it accurate?
I think some of those things as well are where a lot of the technology is like at the moment, as opposed to where it will be in the sort of coming years. Yeah. And I think it's like that video footage example is very much to do with the believability of it, I think, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Accuracy and the believability of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, and which goes back, like, everything seems to go back to that collaboration again, right? Human collaborating with AI to just jumpstart the whole process. So do you have any suggestions, anything for our audience, especially if they want to start with a topic to build something? Which topic you went on, conflict of interest, empathy, which are very human-centric topics, right? And you find it, like, actually, why did you choose those topics? First question.
Empathy. I think we chose that topic because it is about human emotion, and you know,
so you wanted to give the AI the hardest possible challenge, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you said, how do you do in the hardest possible one? Okay, good. That's a good one. Yeah. And would you suggest people to try that again, just for their own, and maybe add like a few maybe changes to see how it adapts to their domain? Because maybe empathy, for like, if they can add something to see how they can change it compared to like what you have done to improve it, or see how it affects that.
Yeah, I think, imagine if you perhaps even worked for an insurance company, and the levels of empathy you would have for people calling in to make a claim, whether it be for their home, for their car, they might have had an accident. It would be interesting to see how it could respond to that sort of situation where you sort of really have to be in that supportive mode, but still be able to carry out your job. So interesting to see sort of almost what phrases it might suggest you say.
Yeah, I think from a design point of view and like a tools point of view, is just to like start using it and to experiment with it, because they are kind of new tools, and they do, you know, it's not like you just pick it up and it just works. There are kind of like there are new skills to learn there to like get it to do what you want it to do, whether it's like learning how to prompt properly so you get the output that you want. I think that I think just get out there and start using it and start experimenting with it. And that's how
I'd agree.
You'll get better results.
Even away from the context of like learner design, which is what we do, but just go and play. I mean, it's coming, isn't it? It's here. So, you know, don't be scared of it, basically. Just get
and I think that's something that was really great about the project, was that, you know, you kind of you go through your day-to-day work and you follow your processes or your team's processes in terms of like making a piece of content. So it's quite easy to not make the time to go and experiment with these tools. So this project in particular was like amazing at having the opportunity to be able to do that and to bring in some of those tools and see where they fit with your workflow and where they're useful, where they're not so useful. And just get an idea of what's out there as well. So yeah, I think experimenting and starting to use the tools is how to just get stuck in, really, and give it a go.
Yeah, don't be frightened of it. It's fun. Also, even for things like if you're making a slide deck and you want to have something like you want to create some icons or have some visuals in there, but you don't know what to use, you can ask things like ChatGPT what it recommends. So again, it just gives you that little bit of a head start, and you can, it gives you inspiration, so you can sort of bring it into your daily flow of work.
Definitely.
I'm going to ask a question. So do you have plans to use this tool and experiment on any other content topics?
I think I'd be interested in seeing how it deals with compliance content, because obviously that's a whole different ball game. You've got the regulations, and it's very kind of strict. So yeah, that'd be what I'd want to do next.
And any space for you, Dan, that you want to try it?
I think, again, getting kind of like higher production value video footage, but more immediately we've been using 11 Labs as like kind of like placeholder voiceover. So maybe you want to like try something out, but you don't want to like get a full VO kind of recorded for it. I think that's been really useful, is using 11 Labs as kind of like a placeholder VO, if you like, just where you like get an edit done. And it just it stops that it stops that like break in your workflow. Like, whereas like if you're making something, then you might have to wait for a VO for like a day or two. You can just like, you can keep going. You can get a VO in like 5 minutes, and then you can carry on editing. And yeah,
that sounds great. I'm just looking at one of the comments in the audience, and they're asking that although the subject of empathy might be a very challenging topic for the AI tool, but a more specialized and less widely understood topic not have generated different kinds of challenges around accuracy and fact-checking. I was wondering if you guys have any comments for that one.
Yeah, I think that ties into kind of the compliance thing, doesn't it? You know, those topics that are kind of really detailed, the kind of, you know, you need to know this to do your job, basically. So I think that would be challenging to see if AI understands the regulation as it should. So yeah, I'm interested in looking into that.
And that's a very interesting point, Corey, because when we are developing the large language models, it's depending on the data and the information that they get. And if you want more specialized answer, of course, it has to be a more specialized large language models that are developed on those information and data related to that topic. So when we go to the more specialized content and specific ones and to more details, it's important to use the generation of like use of large language models and the model that has been developed for those topics. Like especially there are models that are developed for healthcare, models that are developed for finance. So there is a gap there, definitely, and something that for people to be aware of, which I believe it answers John's comments as well. So yeah, that's something that definitely for our audience to be aware of that as well, and anyone who is trying to like, of course, Gemini and ChatGPT gives you all of those head starts, but the accuracy, how relevant it is, and the detail of it, it really depends on what data it has been trained on, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. And Yeah, that's basically it for now. And thank you for thank you for joining me here. And I just want to tell the audience that we have very exciting news. And we have a full AI toolkit that is on its way. So keep your eye glued to our LinkedIn page for the updates. And there is a link to register for that. So when it's released, you are the first one who will get it. And you will have it with you, the whole toolkit of risk assessments and white paper. But meantime, please download the paper and the piece of research that Al and her team has done. Is a great job, and stay tuned. And thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.